All right, welcome everybody. Welcome back to the Productivity Show. My name is Brooks. I'm the Operations Director here at Asian Efficiency and one of the co-hosts of the Productivity Show, and really excited to welcome back Marmel. So welcome, Marmel.
Hey Brooks, hi everyone. For those who don't know me, I'm Marmel. I'm the Scrum Master of Asian Efficiency.
Yeah, welcome Marmel, Scrum Master of Asian Efficiency. Really excited to have you here. In fact, I believe you were on, if I'm not mistaken, I believe you're on 2 episodes ago. So this is a big run for Marmel. We're very excited to have you here. However, we start every single episode. Today, we're going to be talking about our top tips for Outlook. I know a lot of you listening will be Outlook users as well. And I know a number of Dojo members are big Outlook members as well. We users, I should say, we record the podcast live in front of our Dojo community. So we'll be sure to be sharing some of those tips throughout the episode as well. However, we like to start every single episode with our top 3 resources. So these are 3 things, 3 resources, 3 tools, 3 apps, 3 books, 3 things that we're liking now and are making us happy or more productive. So it's my turn to share our top 3 resources. So the first resource I'm going to share is called I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but it's spelled BOGI, the Bogie Microfiber Travel Sports Towel. So if you've ever used one of those microfiber towels, a lot of time they're really small and they don't actually dry very well. And when I mentioned before on the podcast how I did a trip on the Trans-Siberian Railway through Russia, Mongolia, and China, and I wanted to have a towel to bring with me. So I just randomly bought this towel on Amazon. And the reason I bought it is because it's big. Marmela, you've met me a few times IRL, and I think you would agree that I'm not the smallest guy.
Yeah.
So I wanted a towel that was big, but I wanted a microfiber towel that would dry quickly and really, really enjoy this towel. It works really, really well. I know that sounds weird to say I enjoy the towel, but this summer, my family and we bought 4 inflatable stand-up paddle boards. So we've been paddleboarding around our province, and so I bought it for our whole family as well, these towels, and we love them. They dry really fast, and like I said, they are very portable. They fold up into a small little bundle. So check it out. That's the first one. The second tip is Tile. So Tile are these little devices that you can attach to a keychain, put in a wallet, put into anything you want to be able to find. And my wife actually won them a long time ago, and so we started using it. The thing I didn't like about them, the original versions, is they did not have a replaceable battery, so they're only good for a year or two. But now the newer versions do have a replaceable battery, so less waste, and you don't have to keep rebuying it all the time. And I have it in my wallet. My kids have it in their wallets. I have it on my keys, and if anyone with teenagers will know that they tend to lose their wallets a lot. And by lose, I mean not necessarily on the ground or anything like that, but in the house. So we use these tile apps all the time to find things in the house, and they work really well. That's number 2. And then number 3 is a task management app called Todoist. So Todoist is a web-based to-do app, task manager, and we get a lot of questions all the time. What task manager should I use? And Tan and I think you as well, Marmel, all 3 of us use an app called OmniFocus, which is a Mac app. However, one of the good things about Todoist is that it's cross-platform. So if you're a Windows user and a Mac user and you want something that's cross-platform, Todoist is a great task management app. All right, so we are going to be sharing our top tips for Outlook. So if you are new to using Outlook on Windows or Mac, this episode will give you some tips that I bet you haven't seen before, at least some of them. Even if you've been using Outlook at work for ages, but what happens to a lot of us is we start a job, we start using Outlook because that's what you're supposed to use, and you never really tweak it or customize it. You just, start reading email because it's an email app and a productivity app. Well, if that's you, even if you've been using it for years, I bet there's going to be some tips here that will help you out and cause you to look under the hood a little bit and see what's possible. And number 3, even if you're an Outlook ninja, I bet there's going to be some, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Or maybe it could be a trigger for you, because a lot of times when we know a piece of software really well, we kind of don't really think about how the things we do is just second nature to us. So it could be a good trigger to you to help make your coworkers more productive, which of course will help you. All right, and I've been looking through some of the chat that our dojo members, as we live record, has been sharing. And yet, Emily loves the tiles, Lisa loves Todoist, Lee loves Todoist. So a lot of love for our top 3 resources already. Before we get into our Outlook tips, though, I have an announcement to make. So we are really, really excited to be launching a new initiative here at the Productivity Show. And we call it TPS Plus, and you can learn more about it at tps.plus. And TPS Plus is our special, I'd like to think of it as an upgraded version of the Productivity Show. So you get episodes that are ad-free and a week early, along with a bunch of other benefits. So we're launching a special version of the Productivity Show called TPS Plus. And before I get into it, I'm not going to talk about it too long because I want to get into the Outlook stuff. But I just want to emphasize before we get into it that nothing will be changing with the current Productivity Show podcast. We'll still have the same free content. We've been really, really excited and honored to have you as listeners for the last 316 episodes. And I hope we'll still be doing it 316 episodes from now. So that won't be changing at all. And if you want to just keep listening the way you are right now, no problem at all. We're still super honored and fortunate to have you. However, if you're interested in supporting the show and joining TPS Plus, you can go to tps.plus and check it out. And then with just 2 taps, you can get your special ad-free feed with episodes 1 week early. So TPS Plus, what's included? So like I mentioned, the episodes have no ads and they'll appear in your podcast player a week early, so you can get them before anyone else. We're going to have special bonus Ask Us Anything episodes about monthly. Of course, that depends on how many questions we get, but our goal is to have it at least monthly where we collect the questions, and it's right there in the same place where you join tps.plus. You can ask your questions and we collect the questions, and then about once a month, we'll be doing a special members only Ask Us Anything question and answer podcast that'll appear in your feed. You'll also have access to the live stream like currently our dojo members do, and you'll have access to that live stream as well. And you'll get access to our special, and Marmel, this might scare you, I don't know. I'm not sure if you even know about this one, but you'll get access to our private episode show notes. So we record this podcast. I know Marmel makes it look so easy and effortless, like it all just comes off her head. But we do have pretty extensive show notes that we prepare ahead of time. And so you're going to have access to that. You'll be able to see the stuff we're using as we go through the episodes. Also, the stuff that didn't make it into the episode, because sometimes we have things in the show notes, but doesn't make it into the episode. So you'll have access to all that as well. And we also are going to have a special hyper-focused TPS Plus time, energy, and attention. So that's the T framework. Special mini course. So you'll have this special little 3-part mini course on just ways that you can be more productive, and it's available for you as a TPS Plus member. And then another thing, I don't know if you're aware of this, Marmel. You should have seen Tan's face when I suggested this, but we're also going to have a special day in the productivity life of Tan Pham special audio episode where Tan is going to take us through exactly what he does every single day throughout the week to be productive, and is going to be very detailed. I think we're putting it together now. I think he's a little scared, but it's going to be very detailed. And yeah, if you want to go behind the scenes and see and hear what Tan does every day to be more productive, that'll be included with the membership as well. So TPS Plus is a monthly subscription. You can go to tps.plus to learn more. If you want to prepay annually, we have that option as well. So you get 2 months free, and also we have a special 1 tweak a week TPS Plus t-shirt that's available for annual members as well. And that just if you sign up for annual, we'll ship it right to you from anywhere in the world. So that's TPS Plus. Like I said, if you are not interested, no problem at all. Nothing will be changing with the show. However, we're really excited about it. Marmel, are you excited about it?
I didn't know about the tan thing, like the detailed things. I'm very curious too.
Yes, we all want to hear it as well. So yeah, we hope to see you in there. However, This episode is not about TPS Plus. By the way, we're recording this on my birthday, so as a birthday present to me, that's another thing. You can go to tps.plus and check out more. That'll be your birthday present to me. But this episode is not about TPS Plus. It is about Outlook. And I always like to say that Outlook is one of the, if not the biggest productivity apps in the world. Even if you're forced to use it, it doesn't change the fact that it is really popular, really powerful. And we know a lot of productivity show listeners are big Outlook users as well. Some people give Outlook a bad rap, but I actually happen to like Outlook a lot. So when we decided to do this episode, I was really excited to get into it. And I can't remember if I've ever mentioned this on the episode, but I actually started an experiment a few months ago where I ditched my Google business account and I went all in on Microsoft 365. So I use Outlook for email, I use Teams, I use Word, I use Excel, and I've been liking it a lot. My goal is to do it through to the end of 2021, but probably what's going to happen is I'll just keep on going with it because I enjoy with it. How about you, Marmel? What's your Outlook kind of background and experience?
Okay, so after graduating from college and started working in the corporate world many, many moons ago, let's not just mention how many years ago, I was introduced to Microsoft Outlook. I really didn't have a choice. It was what what we all used. So the training I got on how to use Outlook was basically my manager teaching me how to do it. So, you know, imagine from using the free Hotmail and Yahoo Mail. There's no even Gmail before, and then jumping into Outlook, I was like, "Whoa, what are all these buttons?" But it, I was really amazed by all the things that I can do. But during that time, I wasn't a productivity nerd back then, so I ended up just following what my manager was teaching me. So I had a lot of folders, like so many folders. It's like one folder per project per person. But in retrospect, if it, to I don't even recall using the folders much because I kept just using the search function. But because it was how it was taught to me by my manager, I ended up putting everything in folders.
Yeah, that's a lesson I learned, or this is not one of our top 5 tips, but that is a lesson I learned early as well. I used to be a big file in folders guy, and I worked in corporate and government for many, many years, and I used Outlook the whole time. And I started like most people, I just started using it because that's what we used. But over time, I became an Outlook ninja, and I really evangelized productivity tools to other people. I was probably pretty annoying actually, but I started learning, like, once you actually dig into Outlook, there's a lot of things that really make your experience a lot better and a lot better and a lot easier. So and same as you, I became a convert to the topic of searching for email versus like just archiving it and searching it. This was before archiving was even a built-in feature of Outlook, versus versus filing it in a big folder structure. So let's get to our Outlook tips. I should mention we're not going to talk about things that we've mentioned a million times, like turning off notifications, learning keyboard shortcuts. Those are definitely important, especially with Outlook. I highly recommend you learn the keyboard shortcuts. It'll make life a lot easier. But we really wanted to focus on specific Outlook tips here. And we're also not going to do too much of a deep dive into email management itself. We've talked about that multiple times. And if you want to learn more about that, you can go to TPS166, which was an episode we recorded about next level email processing. And you can, like I said, you can get access to everything that we talked about in the show notes at theproductivityshow.com/317. So we'll have links to that podcast episode and everything else we've been talking about as well. I also want to mention that we actually have a Outlook mini course. It's this really hyper-focused product, really focused on Outlook. It's called Optimize Outlook. You can learn more about that at theproductivityshow.com/Outlook. A few of these tips are explained in great detail with videos and stuff like that in there, but there's a lot more in it as well. So let's do our 5 tips. And we're going to start with number 1, which is set up selective notifications. So I guess I lied when I said that we're not going to be talking about notifications, because I just did. But what this means is, and this is a big objection that people have, we're always talking about, I know Marmela, you've talked about this a lot, Tan talks about it a lot. We recommend, if you want to be focused at work, you want to turn off as many notifications as you can. And when you're away from your computer, it's even more important to turn off notifications so that things aren't intruding into your life as well. But the objection that many people have is that they're cool in concept with turning off notifications, but they need to be responsive to maybe their boss or their spouse or an important client or something like that. Well, with selective notifications, you can have your notifications turned off except for specific people or whatever criteria you want to set. So here's how to do it, and it's always it's always a challenge recording an audio podcast talking about software features. So we will do our best. I think we're up to the challenge. But how you do it is on mobile, you tap a contact, and then there's a star, and you tap that. Once you do that, if you're using Outlook Mobile, they're marked as a favorite. And if you go into the Outlook Mobile settings, you can set your notifications for favorite people. So that means you'll get mobile notifications only for those people. If you're on desktop, on Mac and Windows, you do that using rules. So rules is something we're going to be talking about in a bit, spoiler alert. But on Mac and Windows, what you can do is create a new rule based on the person, or it could be a subject line, content, whatever it is that you want to be alerted by. And then in the action, you can choose play a sound or display a desktop alert on Windows or display a notification on Mac. And you can have it so that it only displays those notifications for specific people. Now, I have a question, Marmel. Do you use this feature? Do you have it set up for anyone? I mean, I assume you have notifications set up whenever I email you, but aside from me, is there anybody that you have notifications set up for?
We might know him by the name Tan. So yeah, definitely for Tan and yourself, the notifications are always on. Just because, I don't want to keep on thinking at the back of my head when I'm working that what if there's something important that they send out to me. So it's basically giving me peace of mind as well.
Yeah, I'm the same. For me, I actually have it set up for my wife, though she rarely emails me. Usually we communicate by WhatsApp, but I do have it set up so if she does send me something, forward something, it alerts for that. I'm just looking through our live recording, and yeah, Jojo says she does the same thing. She only gets notified by her leader and a few select others. And yeah, that's really the way you go. We recommend that you go like lock down your notifications big time. But if there are people that you really do need to be notified for, that's how you do it. Favorite people in mobile and rules on Mac and Windows. And by the way, on the Mac, the ability to do this is kind of hidden. One theme that you're gonna hear throughout this episode is we try to keep these tips as cross-platform as possible. But anybody who has used Outlook a lot will know that it's just a simple fact that the Windows version of Outlook is way more full feature than the Mac version. And you can do this in Mac, selective notification, but it's a bit hidden. If you right click on a person and set up a rule that way, you won't see it there. You have to go up to the menu bar, I believe it's tools, and create a rule that way, and then it will be there. Who knows why they did it that way, but it's just the way it is. All right, so that's tip number one, selective notification. Tip number two is something that I learned in my my corporate days because you've probably been in this situation before, and the tip is to auto-file blank meeting responses. And unfortunately, this one, like I mentioned, is a Windows-only feature. I wish Mac Outlook had this as well. If you know how to do this in Mac Outlook, definitely hit us up and let us know. But I know for sure it's on Windows, because this feature, I discovered it in my corporate days, and I always loved it. So anyone who's worked in a big size office with, or at least having meetings with a bunch of different people, knows how it goes, right? You create a meeting and then you get a bunch of meeting responses back. people accept the meeting or don't accept it, or they accept it but maybe have like some sort of note, maybe something they want you to mention, or letting you know they're going to be an hour late, whatever it is. Well, if you think about it, you don't really care if somebody accepts the meeting but then doesn't write anything. You want to be able to look at your meeting and see who's coming and who's not coming. But if somebody is just accepting, you don't really need an email response for that. It's just something that clutters up your email inbox. And especially when you're booking a large meeting, you'll get these floods of, accepting messages that really don't do you any good. So there's a way that you can actually hide them. So what you do is, this is in, like I said, Outlook for Windows only. You go to File, Options, Mail, Tracking. And then there's two settings you want to set there. Number one is a setting to automatically process meeting requests and responses to meeting requests and polls. So that's number one. So that means it's automatically processing those responses that come in. And number two, update tracking information and then delete responses that don't contain comments. So if you get an accept message back and somebody doesn't write anything, then it will just mark it as accepted and then delete it. If they did write something, it'll still mark it as accepted, but it won't delete it. It will still be in your inbox for you to read. So this is something that I loved that feature once I discovered it, and I only realized that I only cared about the exceptions. And as somebody who tended to have to book a lot of meetings, it was definitely an inbox saver for me. Did you ever use that feature, Marmel, or do you use it currently when you were an Outlook user?
Let me be very honest. I never did discover this until such time we were going over the show notes. And I was like, all this time. But as they say, better late than never.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's why we wanted to do this episode, because there are so many of these type of features that can really save you a lot of time and hassle. And so, yeah, that's why we want to give it to you now. Tip number 3 is to create a search folder. So another thing that I don't understand why Microsoft does this the way they do it, but in Windows Outlook, this is called a search folder. In Mac Outlook, it's called a smart folder, but pretty similar idea. So maybe you have frequent searches that you do all the time. Maybe you're searching for a frequent sender, or maybe you're searching for some particular like project code or severity. Maybe you have different types of searches that you do all the time. Well, what you can do is you can set up this search folder or smart folder to permanently put it in your, or temporarily, if you only want to do it for a little while, put it in your sidebar and create what's basically a saved search, so that with one click, you can have a search for a contact or group of contacts. Maybe you're searching for a group, any text or any subject, whatever it is that you need to access a lot in your email. And I bet if you really pay attention to the type of searches that you do, or even if you're not searching, but like digging through your inbox, I bet there'll be lots of cases where you do these sorts of things. It's very easy to set up, and there's different ways to do it, but the easiest way is to do a search in either Windows or Mac. So search for a person, search for a piece of text, and then click the Save Search button. And then you can give it a meeting name. So it can be like TPS reports, or it can be emails from Marmel, or whatever it is. And it will put it right in the search folders or smart folders section and in the sidebar. And this isn't something I used a ton, but for the situations that I do use it and did use it, it came in really, really handy. So especially if I tended to do it more on a temporary basis. So if I'm in the middle of a project and I wanted to collect emails together without having to search around for things related to that project, I'd create a search folder in Outlook for Windows and have it there with one click. Also, what I liked to do is, and we're going to be, again, spoiler alert, we're going to be talking about rules a little later, there would be some ticketing systems that I use, and I would have emails from those from that ticketing system automatically filed so that I didn't have it cluttering up my inbox, but I would have a search folder set up for when the severity of those tickets was critical, so that I could see all my critical things that came in one place. And then it made it really, really handy for me to get access to that. So yeah, not something I used a ton and use a ton currently, but when you need it, it comes in really, really handy. So that's tip number 3, create a search folder. All right, tip number 4, we're gonna veer away from Mac and Windows for a little bit. We're gonna talk about Outlook for mobile. So tip number 4 is to change the Outlook mobile swipe actions. So mobile devices, we've talked about this on the podcast before, aren't the greatest for email management. Like if you're using it for responding to emails and that sort of thing, they're not the greatest for that, but they are great for email triaging. So getting rid of emails that you don't need to focus on, maybe deleting emails or archiving emails, so that when you do sit down to your desk to really go through your email management, maybe in a buffer block or something like that, your email's already pared down. So the problem with doing that on mobile is that it can take a lot of tapping. You know, you tap on an email, you look at it, maybe you star it, maybe you archive it, maybe you delete it, and then you delete it, maybe you have to confirm. It can take a lot of tapping to deal with emails on your mobile device. So I actually don't know which app it was that invented this concept. It's definitely not Outlook. I know Spark on mobile has it. I know Dispatch is the first one on iOS, was the first one that I was familiar with this. But the idea is to swipe. So for a long time, many email programs have allowed you to swipe left to delete. But on Outlook and other email programs, you can actually swipe left and do things as well, or swipe right and do things. And you can actually customize that. So here's how to change it. If you go to Outlook Mobile, go to Settings, and then there'll be a setting there for swipe options. And you can choose on Outlook for Windows and Android, you can choose both your left and right swipe action. So you can choose to delete, to archive, to flag or unflag, to mark read or unread, to move, to snooze, which is a handy feature, to read and archive, so mark it read and archive it, or you can have it to do nothing. If you find yourself, you keep accidentally swiping and it's messing you up, you can actually disable it, just set it to nothing. So I currently have it set so that if I swipe right, it marks it read and archives, and if I swipe left, it deletes it. How about you, Marmel? I know you use Outlook for mobile. Do you use swipe actions at all?
I actually do, and I don't know why it's such a coincidence that we actually have the same action. So I swipe right to delete and then swipe left to read and archive, since those are my two most used actions in Outlook and even in other emails.
Yeah, Katie, who's listening in the dojo, says yes to swipe actions in all caps. I don't know how I'd survive without them. And yeah, once you become comfortable with using swipe actions, especially not just for deleting, which is pretty common, but also going the other way and doing things like flagging, archiving, moving, you know, whatever it is, snoozing, you know, whatever it is you want to do. Once you get used to doing that, it makes a really big difference for managing and triaging email on your mobile device. All right, so that is tip number 4, change the Outlook mobile swipe actions. And let's talk about tip number 5. Now, when we first started talking about this episode, I was asking Marmel, you know, do you have any big Outlook tips you want to make sure you include? And Marmel was very adamant. She said we have to talk about rules, which I agree. We could not possibly do an Outlook tips episode without covering rules. I actually think rules are, especially on Outlook on Windows, although it's still pretty good on Outlook for Mac, but rules is one area where Outlook shines, especially on Windows. And yeah, many email programs have rules. But what we mean by rules is that when an email comes in, it automatically takes some sort of action. So maybe it's automatically deleting it, archiving it, you know, whatever action you want to do. Many email programs have that, but I would say Outlook, especially Outlook for Windows, has the most powerful and fully featured rules feature of anyone that I'm familiar with. And it's kind of interesting too, because they make it really easy in the sense that you can right click on an email. There'll be an option there. It'll say create rule from this email, or so I can't remember the exact wording. You choose that and it's very simple, create a rule from this person, maybe with this subject line, and then it gives you a few options for what you want to do with it, delete it, move it, that sort of thing. So it's very simple to do, but there's a button there down at the bottom right hand corner that says advanced. And once you hit that advanced button, you are in a whole different world where there's just a ton of different things you can do with it. So if you want to really take control of your email, you really do owe it to yourself to explore what rules can do, maybe for automatically archiving, filing, deleting. One option you can do, one example we talked about earlier is doing selective notifications. You could, if you want to flag, you could automatically flag emails from a certain client or maybe your boss. You could automatically archive newsletters or updates that you want to keep, but you don't need them cluttering up your inbox. You could put emails that have been CC'd to you instead of sent directly to you in another folder so that they're still there. You can check them, but they're not taking your focus away from things that are directly sent to you, because I'm sure anyone who has worked in a decently sized organization knows that we get CC'd on a lot of emails that really we don't need to be reading right away. And especially BCCs are the worst. You could do things like put anything with the word receipt in some sort of receipts folder, or you could always automatically forward email from a certain contact or with a certain subject line or something like that to somewhere else in your organization. So those are a few examples of things that you can do. I've used rules for years and years and years. I've used almost all of those at some point. I've also done things like forward certain emails to Evernote. So Evernote and other systems like Todoist, which we talked about earlier, Trello has this as well, has these special, OmniFocus as well, has these special email addresses that when you forward something to it, it automatically imports them. So I've had a rule set so that if emails that meet a certain criteria get automatically forwarded to Evernote. Or you could do the same thing, sending, if certain receipts, automatically forward them to your accounting software or something like that, or your bookkeeper or something like that. All sorts of rules that just take those extra steps out of the things you need to do with your email, which is A, saves you time, but B, makes it more likely that you can stay on top of your email inbox because it's just a bunch of less things that you need to deal with. So I'm not going to ask you if you've used rules, Marmel, because you were the one who twisted my arm and forced me to include it. But so I know you have. So what kind of rules have you used?
So it's the first thing that I always do first is set up the rules. Other people don't like doing it because for them it's tedious, but for me it's really the most important part every time you set up, your email. So for me, it's like I always have a rule that if it's from this certain person and I'm in the to line, definitely do not archive it. Definitely do not send to spam. It has to be in the main inbox, and everything else, if I'm just in the CC, in the CC portion, just read and archive it. And Outlook also has this color coding feature, which I use for Bella, my kid's teacher. So I'm very bad with names, so I color code it. Like if it's the science teacher and substitute teacher is a green, so I use rules like that. And so, the great thing about Outlook is that even if you're using the web-based Outlook, is that you can also set up rules. So you have the Outlook application, and they have the web-based option as well. So you can even set up the rules even if you're just using the web-based version.
Katie says, I think after the next week, I'm going to have to sit down and do these rules. So we've convinced her. So we have at least one convert, at least one listener is getting the religion of rules. So that's super awesome. And yeah, Lisa in the chat says, one of her favorite Outlook features is changing the view and using conditional formatting, exactly what you just talked about, to color code emails. So yeah, that's a really great way to do it too. All right, so those are our 5 Outlook tips that we wanted to be sure to mention. So number 1, set up selected notifications. Number 2, auto-file your blank meeting responses. Number 3, create a search folder. Number 4, create Outlook mobile swipe actions. And number 5, create a rules wizard. However, you know us, that we couldn't just stop at 5. So we're going to do a little lightning round now. Just mention some other rules that we wanted to talk about, but that we couldn't not do a podcast without talking about. So we just wanted to quickly hit on a bunch of different Outlook rules. So one of them I wanted to mention for sure is, and this is Windows only, unfortunately, is called quick steps. And this is, like I said, Windows only. I did some research just to confirm that, because I was pretty sure it was Windows only. And there's a lot of Mac users really angry that this is not in the Mac version, which I understand. Quick Steps to me is a criminally underused feature of Outlook. What that lets you do is it allows you to create small little, I'm going to call them automations. So small little automations within Outlook that you can do a chain of either one or more actions, and you can assign keyboard shortcuts to them as well. So if you're an Outlook for Windows user, it's up there in the top in the ribbon. It's called Quick Steps. Definitely take a look at that. They give you some examples, and you can create your own. Number 2 is also, unfortunately, a Windows only feature, and it's called Cleanup. So you can run Cleanup on your email inbox. And what that will do is it'll do a number of different things. But basically what it does is it goes through your email inbox, and you know there's a lot of, say you've been away from your email inbox for a day or two, something like that. Maybe you're on vacation. Well, you know that there's going to be email chains there. And you know a lot of those email chains are just responding to each other, but then the responses are kind of quoted in the chain. So you really have this, in a lot of cases, you might have the same email in that list about 20 times, depending on the size of the chain. What Cleanup will do is go through and remove those emails that are already included in other emails, so you don't have to wade through as many things. And to do that, you just right click on your inbox and go clean up inbox. And again, that's a Windows only feature, but it can be good when you are going through, especially when you've been away for a while. I want to give a shout out to Lisa, who shared a lightning round tip, which is, she says her most used Outlook tool is to convert an email to an OneNote page where she can create additional or take additional notes and create tasks. So yeah, that's another thing I wanted to mention, but but OneNote is a great suggestion. So you can create an email to convert an email to a task. So, you know, a lot of times we have an email and it's actionable. And so if you're using a web-based to-do system like Todoist, what you might do is forward it to Todoist, or there's an Outlook plugin. You might forward it to your task system. But if you use Outlook for tasks, you can take an email and drag it to the task item, and it will convert it to a task. But another thing you can do, like Lisa says, is send it to OneNote as well. And then you've got it in OneNote. You can take notes on it. You can share it, and a bunch of different things. So that's a great tip from Lisa, sharing it to OneNote. Marmel, you had a mobile lightning round tip you wanted to share.
Yeah, actually, not just for mobile, but it's also available on desktop. So it's called the focused inbox. So you can turn it on under the view, and then just choose, you know, focused inbox. So what happens is that if there's an email that you want to be always on top, then you can move it to your focus inbox. Like, I use it when there's an email that I want to track every time, and I don't want to keep on searching, so that every time I open it, it's just there, and I would know if, you know, if there are any changes for that email.
Another lightning round tip I definitely had to mention is you can use automation for Outlook as well. So Microsoft has their own automation platform called Microsoft Power Automate, but you can use, if you use the web-based version of Outlook, if your organization allows that, you can use Zapier as well. But you can do pretty sophisticated automations using Microsoft Power Automate if you are a Microsoft 365 business customer. So one automation I set up, which is of course, I could just forward the email to OmniFocus because I use OmniFocus as my task manager. But of course, I wanted to be a bit more nerdy than that. So I set up an automation with Microsoft Power Automate so that if I flag an email in Outlook, it will automatically send it to OmniFocus. And that's done through Power Automate. So that's an example of the sort of things you can do. But especially when you're working together with other Microsoft tools, you can do a lot of pretty significant automations with Microsoft Power Automate. Some other tips that our live listeners have given. Katie makes a great point. She likes that she can create a Zoom meeting link from within Outlook. I believe you need the Zoom plugin for that, but it's very easy to use. And that makes it really quick. You can create a Zoom meeting right from Outlook. You don't have to like go into Zoom, create the meeting, then copy the link in. Same with Teams. You can create Teams meetings right from within Teams, obviously, but you can create it from within. If you have them both on your computer, you can create Microsoft Teams meetings right from Outlook as well. All right, so that is a lot of Outlook tips. Hopefully you've picked up something you haven't implemented before. For action steps, we always like to end with some action steps. So number one, don't try and implement all of these at once. So Katie gave a great example that when she has time next week, she's going to sit down and she's going to implement rules. And that is, if I was to recommend one place to start with the most bang for your buck, probably would be rules as well. So pick one and start with that. Implement that, get it set up, start getting the benefits, and then you can roll with the next one. The second tip is to check out TPS Plus. So go to tps.plus in your browser or even on your mobile device, and with just 1 or 2 taps, you can have your private, special, ad-free week early feed right into whatever podcast app you use. So that's number 2. And number 3, if you want links to anything that we talked about today, you can go to the show notes at theproductivityshow.com/317. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Marmel, for joining us. Any last Outlook or podcast words you want to give?
Yeah, don't forget to check out TPS.plus because it's Brooke's birthday today. It's our happy birthday to him.
There you go. All right. Well, thank you so much, Marmel. And thank you much, everybody, for listening. We really appreciate it.